Well, ladies and gentlemen, this next act is a favourite of mine. He's one of the best comics you'll ever see. He's subtle, but at the same time blatant. Doesn't move much. There's no facial expressions involved. It's just he's a man of ideas, basically, and got a great mind. Lovely bloke, pretty funny. Getting on a bit, but he's reached that age where at least he's reached it, and many people don't get that opportunity. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's rather a long-winded introduction, but go crazy for fucking me. Here I am. I was married, my first wife was Chinese, and I was writing short stories at the time just for my own amusement. And I used to do public readings with my short stories, and they always went down very well. And then my ex-wife said, all of my friends think you're really funny and they can't even speak English, so you must have something funny about you, and you should try and get some money. She was interested in the money aspect of it. She said you should try and make some money out of it, make a living out of it. So she gave me a bit of a push. We came to Sydney, and that's where the opportunities were at the time, because if we stayed in Canberra, there was fucking nothing happening there. So I think moving to Sydney was the right move, and I'm certainly glad I did it. Before I was a comedian, I was unemployed for 20 years, on the dole for 20 years. I got no recognition for that, by the way, no plaques on the fucking wall or anything like that. But I was on the dole for not quite 20 years, I was on the dole for about 19 years. Then from there I went to working for the council. Not much difference in activity actually, but I was with the council for 19 months. And then I started doing stand-up comedy, a bit of a hobby, and then as I improved, I started to get some paid work. And then I decided, much to the despair of my wife at the time, to give my day job up and try and do comedy full-time, because I think in order to be any good at it, you have to do it full-time, so that's what I wanted to do. It sort of fucked the marriage up in a way, because she wanted me to have a steady job and the whole, that sort of thing. But I said, no, I want to do comedy, so I need to concentrate on it. So I thought money isn't necessarily what I live for, and I decided to take a bit of a punt. It's worked out all right. I'm not wealthy or any, but I think I've done pretty well out of comedy. I've got a good reputation, and I'm not broke. And I'm certainly glad I chucked my day job in, because otherwise I'd still be a council worker, and fuck that. Comedy is probably the best lifestyle you could ever imagine. You travel the world, you meet people, you do what you love, which is stand-up, and you expand your horizons and all the travelling and the meeting of people. And I've been to places, I've worked in 23 different countries, which I wouldn't have done if I hadn't done stand-up. And I've met women through comedy. I've met a lovely woman, and we're happily married, and without comedy I wouldn't have met her, definitely, and without comedy I would probably be dead. I probably would have topped myself at some point, because I was just on the dole going nowhere, and comedy gave me a bit of direction, and without it I would be absolutely nowhere actually. So I love comedy, and I owe comedy a lot. I was doing a show, it was a corporate show in Papua New Guinea, in Port Moresby. That place is an absolute shithole. And it was in a compound, more or less. It was in a hotel, but it's such a dangerous place. You can get murdered and fucking raped and attacked. It's really dodgy at night. So you tend to live in compounds, and I was doing a corporate gig in a hotel. And it was going quite well. It was for $1,000, which was like 20 years ago. It was a lot of money. They flew me up there, and I was doing 10 minutes, and it was all going very well. And then I did a joke about God, and then some bloke down the back got up, some big fat drunken fucking idiot, and said, "Yeah, you did a joke about God, you fucking arsehole." So he came up to the stage, and everyone thought it was part of the act. And so he grabbed me. He didn't punch me, but he was a lot bigger than I was. I weighed 60 kilograms at the time, and he was like fucking a big chap. And he grabbed me, and we started wrestling one another, and people was laughing initially because I thought it was part of the act. And then they realised it was an actual fight taking place, and they jumped on the stage and separated us. And then he ran out to get a gun. He had a gun in his car in the car park. He was actually going to fucking shoot me, and people raced after him. And they somehow convinced him that I wasn't worth going to jail for. So he didn't come back with a gun, but I finished the set out. That's how fucking professional I was. I still did my full set, so I still did another 15 minutes after that somewhat traumatic experience. And then luckily they gave me $100 bonus for putting up with that shit, and I got the fuck out of Port Moresby early the next day, which I was very grateful to do, because it is a fucking horrible inbred place. So Port Moresby, I hope if you're listening, it may have improved over the last 20 years, but I fucking doubt it. Woody Allen, Stephen Wright. I tend to like Bill Hicks for his honesty. He's not necessarily a wordsmith, but Bill Hicks is very honest. George Carlin, I really like, is extremely clever. Again, I don't think George Carlin's as funny as Richard Pryor, for instance, right? But Richard Pryor is a funny bloke and performs really well. I mean, if you saw Richard Pryor's act on paper, you'd throw it in the fucking bin, to be honest. But he's had such superlative performance skills. I really like. I find Richard Pryor generally very, very funny. Probably the funniest of all the comics, but not necessarily the cleverest. And so I'm torn between Richard Pryor and I think George Carlin, Woody Allen. If it was a three-headed monster, they'd be the three heads. Yeah, this political correctness shit is fucking destroying comedy. There's all this absolute nonsense about diversity in comedy. Comedy has always been diverse, right? If you were funny, I go back 20 years when I first started. If you were funny, you're up there. You know, there was no discrimination. If you could be Steady Eddie, disabled. You could be a gay comic like whoever, Kenneth Williams or whoever. So, all different genders of comedians, different ethnic backgrounds, different genders, all became successful if they're any good. There was never any discrimination in comedy. That's a load of bullshit. We'll come along, we need to add diversity in comedy. No, you don't. You need the funniest people on the stage, regardless of gender or race. They need to, and comedy is I wouldn't say the final frontier, but it's like, comedy is the final arbitrator of whether you're funny or not, and whether you deserve to be up there. The audiences are the final adjudicators, not some fucking academic with a degree in political correctness and all that other fucking nonsense. Right? We need to get away from it, because it's destroying comedy. Always try to be a little bit uncomfortable. Once you're in the comfort zone, get the fuck out of it, because that means you've finished developing and you won't go anywhere. That'll be your stopping point. When you feel comfortable, that's the end. You've got to feel uncomfortable all the time and accept new challenges, and push yourself, and have a bit of faith in yourself, because comedy can be hard. You can have bad nights, bad reviews. You can lose confidence if you're not careful, but always have the utmost faith in yourself, and listen to the positive voices inside of you, and try and get inspiration from good comedians and people that are more advanced than you. Listen to them and watch them, see what they do. And it's a big learning curve, comedy. You just have to be constantly learning. But as I said, the main thing is do not remain comfortable. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.